Hello my friends and welcome to Creatively Montessori. This video is going to help you find some winter selections for your early childhood classroom. There are some that are appropriate for toddlers, some appropriate for preschool, pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, and even first or second grade. A lot of a book is really what you make it, isn't it? It can be a simple read through once, it can be a read aloud, which helps quite a bit. I'm going to talk about the books I chose and why. I am super big on reading to the children in class. I like to read to them several times a day. And I believe the more you read to them, the better their comprehension is, as well as the better their vocabulary becomes. So books are really important to me. And to the best of my ability, I always try to pick quality literature pieces. But the reality is that sometimes you are stuck with what is available to you, because if you are a teacher, whether you're in a private setting or a public school, you are often trying to use the same books as many other people. So here are some books that I've chosen that I used often in my Montessori classroom, both early childhood and elementary, and I even taught the toddler environment for a few years, as well as at home with my own children. I'm going to start with Jan Brett, The Mitten and the Hat. This is actually a really large book. I weirdly enough found it at a Goodwill bin thrift store, and so it was 33 cents and I just couldn't pass it up. I certainly don't need a big book. It's not anything I would ever use in a Montessori environment, but I don't know if I'm going to use the pictures or cut them up into puzzles. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but Jan Brett's pictures are just unbelievable and I love her artwork. If you don't know, Jan Brett is quite a prolific children's author. She has many books, and The Mitten is probably one of her most famous ones. She has an awesome website that has been around probably for 20 years, where she has a lot of free things that teachers and parents can use, caregivers can use. So I encourage you to check that out. I believe that it's janbrett.com. But this is The Mitten, and there's lots of stuff on Pinterest, about using this story and doing comprehension activities, art activities. But if you haven't seen her books before, I just absolutely love that her illustrations are beautiful, but she also always has these side panels where on the left, part of the story is on these side panels on the left and on the right. So this is his grandma and the main character with his going outside, and he wants her to make him white mittens that she's like, I don't really want to make the white mittens because they're going to get lost in the snow. And then as you read the book, as you continue on in the pictures, he's going out into the snow. And then this is the first picture where you have some idea of what animal he's going to find or what animal he's going to run into. And then the next animal. And so I just love that about this book. It is one of my absolute favorite winter books. This is another book I enjoy tremendously. It's The Hat. It's the same idea as The Mitten. I think she was like, that was so successful, let me have another take on this. This is actually about a little girl instead of a little boy. It's the same idea though. Her hat comes off, and actually I think it's lost on the clothesline. Maybe they take it off the clothesline, and then different animals make their way into it. So fun. I like to do activities with this that include putting out gloves, mittens, scarves. Sometimes I put out like woolly socks. I do not put out hats. Scarves I would put out as well. Earmuffs I probably wouldn't put out. In a basket with this book, with either of the books, so that the children can experience putting on gloves, mittens, scarves, that kind of thing. I used to live in Nebraska for a very long time, so it wasn't a big deal because all of the children were used to these items. I now live in Texas, and most of the children here have never experienced snow, and so that's a neat experience for them to put on gloves and kind of outerwear that they wouldn't otherwise experience. There's also a great opportunity with these books to do different activities with snow, or ice activities, or faux snow. One of our favorite things was to put the children's hands in a plastic baggie, and then put their hand in a plastic baggie in a container of ice water so that they could see how cold it was, and then put their hand, cover it with Crisco, grease oil, whatever that is, cooking oil, shortening, I guess, and then put their hand back in the ice so that they can feel the insulation and how that affects the cold that they can feel. There are lots of different activities you can do, science related, outdoor things, different, different weather-related activities, lots of things about animals. So those are two of my favorites. This one I actually hadn't seen before this year. It's Tom and Pippo Go for a Walk. So the little boy is Tom and his stuffed monkey is Pippo. And it's only with my winter books because it takes place in winter and you can see he's all bundled up in his winter clothes. But he actually goes for a walk and the monkey falls in like a puddle or something. And so he gets upset about it. And so it's a little bit about social emotional awareness and how to handle something that happens that you're not super happy about. So I thought that was a cute story. I know lots of children have kind of a lovey or something they take and then they can't find it. So this was, I thought, a book that was a great opportunity, not only for dressing for the weather outside, but also kind of how to handle things emotionally when either you don't get your way or something happens that you didn't expect. There he is falling in the mud. Isn't that a cute picture? And then how they solved it. He takes a bath and mom washes him up. So I thought that was a cute book. And there is apparently a whole series on Tom and Pippo. Okay, Red Sled is the next one. That is one of my absolute favorites. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. This is actually a board book, so I would absolutely use it with toddlers, but it is also made in just like a regular preschool size book. This book is by Lita Judge, and if you haven't read this book, you are missing out because it is an absolutely fabulous book where this little child leaves out the red sled and a bear comes and takes it and he makes all of these noises. And the kids love it when I read this book. Scrunch, 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 right? And so you get louder as the words get louder. And so it's a lot about print awareness. And then they take a ride on the sled. Woo! Right? I mean, it's just absolutely such a fun book. This one I do a lot about, is it realistic, not realistic? Is it, we talk about action words. And so this is a much loved story. Because it is really a picture book, almost a wordless picture book, we do a lot with rereading this one. And by the time I've read it the third time, the kids can all do it with me. And so they love it by the time we get to the whoa, whoa, whoa. And I just really exaggerate that sound because the illustrator does it as well with the pictures. So this would be one I would absolutely recommend that if you don't have it, that you get it, whether it's, Amazon and Walmart. Those are such great places to get books if you can't find them at the thrift store, which is my favorite way to do it. Okay, The Little Snowflake. This is a Scholastic book, so it came with a Scholastic book order I did. It is for sure of the books I'm showing you, like the actual cheapest feeling book. Like the pages are not a super nice quality, but it is kind of a sweet story about this little snowflake and his travels through town. But you can see even the illustrations are not as high a quality as the other ones I've shown you so far. This is one that I think in years past I could get for under $1 from Scholastic, and so I frequently sent this home as a gift to the children when we had our winter break, so that they had a book that was just special and was their own. And I prefer books like that are non-sectarian, non-religious. I don't want to send home a book about Christmas or something like that because not everyone celebrates Christmas. Okay, The Snow Must Go On, a way, way off-Broadway adventure. It's a cute story. It's a Hallmark book, which I've just recently discovered Hallmark books because I'm not a person who would normally spend $20 or $30 on a book, and the Hallmark books are quite expensive. But I have been finding them at thrift stores, and I will say that they have all been of very, very nice quality. This, out of the books I'm showing you, is the longest book by far. And I don't know that, I for sure would not read this with toddlers. I think even young preschoolers would have a hard time getting through this. There are a lot of words on the page, so it's not my favorite in that regard. But I do like the illustrations, and I do think it's a sweet story. So I think it's a little bit about, this one is a little bit more about your audience, and is this a group that, you have a group of children or your child would really enjoy this book. But it is really a beautifully done book. All right, next one we're going to do is Lost in the Snow. Look at this cute little dog. You can't really tell, but this is one of those books, there you can tell, that has like dimension to it. So when you feel it, the snowflakes are actually raised. What I like about this book is the illustrations are phenomenal, right? They're so cute. The pictures are illustrations are absolutely beautiful. I do like them quite a bit. This book reminded me how much I know what snow feels like and looks like. But if you live in a place where there is no snow, like you wouldn't necessarily as a child know that just like you do in sand, you'd you make footprints and that it blows all around you and it's blustery and how that feels, and that you can have a whiteout and really genuinely not see anything in front of you. So I like this one in terms of the actual winter. This one is what I consider a traditional children's book in terms of he gets separated from his mom, and then he goes and talks to, all of these different animals and says, "Are you my mother? Can you help me? Where's my mom?" And so he kind of goes on this adventure. Of course, he's found in the end. So very sweet story. Again, simple, nothing too elaborate, but I do like the illustrations. Okay, Al Moon. If you don't know Al Moon, again, it's not really intended for super, super young children. It's almost written in a poetic way. The pictures, I love the pictures, but they're not super cartoony and super like grab your attention. They're much more artistic in my opinion. And the whole book is just very serene. The whole book just gives you this sense of peace and tranquility, in my opinion. It is a Caldecott Medal winner, and it's by Jane Yolen. This one is pretty easy to find audio recordings of it. And the audio recordings, like just to hear somebody read this book is just awesome, but it's told from the little boy's perspective or the child's perspective. And the descriptive words they use are phenomenal. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, little gray footprints, paw made a long shadow. Just everything about this book I absolutely love. And again, it's not a new book. I think it came out in the late 80s. Yeah, 87. But I love this book, and it's really a book about a special time between the child and the dad, and going out to see an owl moon and hearing an owl, and just this special time between the two of them. So that for me is a really special book. Okay, I have a few more to show you. This one is Snowmen at Night. I actually just happened to have found today. This is like how strange things work sometimes. So Snowmen at Night, super cute, fun story. And then when I was thrifting today, I found Snowmen at Christmas. So you can see she has two different ones. So this one I would not read in my class, but I would certainly happily read it to my children at home. But Snowmen at Night is, again, another one, kind of the whole, what happens when you're asleep and the snowmen are out, and what games do they play and how they have parties and fun. So it's a very fun, imaginative story. Again, I love the illustrations to this. I think if you were doing a class story or a class book, this would be a great one for the kids to add on to, for each of them to do an illustration and for them to say what they think the snow people do at night. So I absolutely love that book as well. And then we have The 12 Days of Winter, a school counting book, which this one is new for me this year. And it kind of reminded me, at first I thought it was a Christmas book, like it was the 12 Days of Christmas, but it's Days of Winter. Personally, I don't care for the illustrations, but I push myself sometimes, and I introduce the kids in my classroom to books that I don't necessarily love, and we talk about that. I don't say, "Oh, I don't love this book," but I ask them what they think about the illustrations. This one is very cartoony to me, and I don't know, they just look unpleasant. And so it's like, But we talk about things like, "Oh, look, the shoes are all over the place. And what do you think about that? Oh, look, it looks like, I don't know if this is a mom or an older child, but she looks like she's helping the younger child." So we talk about things like that as well. And that's why I included the book, because I do think there's value to it. So it's just things that happened on the third day of winter. My teacher gave to me 3 penguins, 2 teddy bears, and a bird feeder in a snowy tree. So I do like this idea, because I think there's so many holiday books out there that this is nice to do when you get back from the holidays in January and it's cold and it's dark. I think this is a great way to introduce things. I also always love it when books kind of serve a dual purpose of introducing new vocabulary, or in this case, you're adding on the number component where you can work on 12 days. Again, this would be a super easy book to add the writing component to, of creating, either with your class or with your own child homeschooling, your own 12 days of winter. What would be your 12 things for winter? And maybe where you live, winter doesn't involve snow, so you have to pick different things. So that is another one that is high on my list. And then this is the last one. This is a book by Christy Yamaguchi, who is an ice skater. And so this is called Kara's Kindness. It's a very sweet book. She's a New York Times bestselling author. I could be wrong, but I don't think she's a New York bestselling author for this book. It is one of those books that, from a teacher perspective, I I appreciate, that she was a famous person and she wanted to write a book for children about kindness. And it for sure does go over that social, emotional, somebody's in need and how can I help them out. So I do appreciate that. It's not my favorite book in terms of the language. When I do a read aloud book, even when I'm reading with my children at night, I like it to sound like I talk, with the exception of a Skippy John Jones book, which I can't. He just talks in such a funny way. I love to mimic him, but I can't. That's not how I speak. But this one, as I read it, I thought there are a few pages that are just, I don't know. And it wasn't that they're too formal. It just wasn't, there's just something, and that when there's an author that maybe you like the idea of the story, but the wording just isn't quite right. And like, this is an example. She skated over to him. Hi, I'm Kara, as in caring about why you look so down. Like, that's just weird. For me, that's just strange. And again, I would still read it to my children. It's not the book that I would choose to read over and over again. And then the response is, hi, I'm Darby the dog, he responded. And well, I don't know how to skate and I'm a little afraid to try. So this part I have less of an issue with. But again, I'm Darby the dog. Like, I don't know. I think sometimes people underestimate little children. And I don't know. I think it would have been fine just to say, I'm Darby. But I didn't like the whole, I'm Kara, as in caring about why you look so down. Like that, I don't know. It just felt very inauthentic to me. Maybe that's what I had an issue with. So these are just a few of the books that I have for my winter selection. I absolutely love, love, love books. I think if I hadn't become a teacher, I should have become a media specialist just so I could deal with books all day and share my love of literature with children. But where literature really pays off is introducing children to different stories, different themes, winter, all the different animals they might see. And then we talk about each one. We talk about whether they liked the book or whether they didn't like the book. Was that a favorite book of yours? Would you like to read that book again? We often talk about what was the beginning of the story? What was the middle of the story? What was the end of the story? What was the problem in the story? Most books have a problem. So we talk about different comprehension skills that sometimes when you do that with a toddler or a young preschooler, they just look at you and that's okay. They just look at you like, what are you talking about? But the more often you do that, the more often they will start to understand, oh, that's what she's asking me, or that's what I need to be listening for in the book. But we just want all children to have a love of books. And you don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars getting books. You can get them from your library. You can get them from the thrift store. You can go on places like Facebook Marketplace. There are oftentimes people giving away books that they just, they don't need them anymore. Their children have outgrown that age group, but there are just so many ways to get children's books. And so I just highly, highly encourage you, if you are a parent, read to your child every single day. For teachers in the classroom, caregivers, same thing. I encourage you so strongly to read to your one child, a group of children, a classroom full of children multiple times a day, and incorporate it into the other lessons and activities you're doing. I used to read in my Montessori classroom. We had line time where I read to the kids, of course, but I would read them a book while they were washing their hands, while they were in line to wash their hands, because we had one sink and I had 30 children. And so I would read them a story, and they learned very quickly to look at the story I was reading to them while they were in line. And they followed the story. You'd be like, oh, they're not really getting the story. They did. And it was a remarkable thing. So please subscribe to the channel. I plan on doing more kind of theme-related book groupings, as well as I will do some follow-up lessons for activities that I would have in my Montessori classroom that you can use in a homeschooling environment. You can use if you're a caregiver, if you're an early childhood center, or even in a public Montessori program that you can do with your children. So those will all be on my channel, and I will put them in playlists so they're easier for you to follow. But please hit that thumbs up like button, and thank you for supporting my channel. See you next time.